Hey everyone, thank you so much for joining the webinar session by Kommunicate. Really excited to have you all here. My name is Manav. I'm the host for the session today. Please drop in the chat where you all are joining us from. Really excited to see people from different parts already. So just a brief note on Communicate webinar series. These series are aimed at bringing in industry thought leaders from customer experience, customer support, and conversational AI space to share their real life journey and experiences. This is just an itinerary that what we will go today through in introduction of our guest speaker, Chris, who will join you, and how customer expectations have changed during COVID and how we're changing, what people are changing or facing towards the advancement in the AI. And we will hear from Chris on his current state of CX, how it's moving to, and then we will have the Q&A session open for the rest of the folks to join in. Chris comes with more than 20 years of experience. He has worked for the client side as well as for the brand side. He has worked for clients and brands across different geographies across Europe, Asia, and America. Currently, he heads the consulting division at Lexden Consulting. He is the host for CX Superhero, Customer Experience Superhero podcast. I've been listening to him since I've come across his profile. I've been listening to various different sections of or episodes of the podcast. And he's also the founder of Customer Experience World Games. Chris, welcome to the session. Really happy to have you here. Please begin with your introduction. And just to start with, I'm really excited, really intrigued by Customer Experience World Games. What is it
Sure,
exactly?
sure. Thanks, man, and thank you for the guys at Communicate for inviting me along here. I'm hoping what we share is of value for people to take away and start thinking about further. So yeah, I've been in customer experience for a while before it was actually called customer experience. I didn't realize that's what it was. It just always felt like the right thing to do for me. And over the years, realized that it needed to be formulated to be like a business practice as well. And as you already said, working with a number of organizations, supporting them on typically enterprise level customer centric transformations. You draw attention to the customer experience of World Games. Yes, I'll tell you about that. That happened. I mean, I know we're going to talk about COVID, but this happened during COVID. I was reaching out to colleagues and clients and others in the community, and understandably, we were all staring at the screen, thinking, "What's going to happen next?" And one of the things I was very conscious of was retail had stopped. So a lot of us who were practicing customer experience were struggling to do this as people were quickly learning to do home contact center work. Again, it was a challenge to do that, and decided that some of the people who were finding it difficult to work, wouldn't it be good to come together and just practice our customer experience capabilities? And someone I was working with at the time, Heidi Stone, said, well, why don't we turn it into something more productive than that? And we came up with this concept of the Customer Experience World Games, where we invited members of the community to volunteer their time and their talent. We reached out to some charities and we asked those charities, what customer experience challenges do you have that you would like solved? And we created those as challenges. We got the players to come together. They were randomly put into different teams. So you could be playing with people on the opposite part of the globe, which for time zone differences was fun, but they could be in very different roles. You could have people who are customer service leaders, or they could be vendor product developers, or they might be head to CX, all from all different walks of all different industries, all different cultures coming together. And we positively competed like a games to actually create a some solutions for the charities. And the charities then got all the answers back in from the different teams and were able to go and implement them. Well, fast forward 4 years, we're still doing it. We've helped over 30 charities. We have over 800 players now signed up who come on board. And this year we're actually hosting 4 games. We've got a World Games in June. And then we have some country specific ones. People like to play in the local or their home language. So we've got one in Poland, one in Argentina, and one in South Africa. And what we're really doing is it's become a bit of a learning and development program. People come together, they learn new capabilities and skills from each other. We don't dictate how it works. The teams create it themselves. And at the end of the day, the charities get this free advice and these free solutions. Now, what we have found is some of the players go on to work with the charities in terms of volunteering and help actually implement the solutions as well. So it's a social experiment. We think it's the largest social experiment in customer experience in the world. And what it's aimed to do is to demonstrate customer experience can create a really positive outcome for society. So, yep, into year 4. If anyone's interested in playing, it's free to play. There's no financial engagement at all. It's just purely giving up time to then solve charity challenges you may never have come across before.
Got it. I just had to put the background looking at your background. I just I just totally forgot that. Okay, cool. That is really interesting how you came up with that idea. So is there any, do I have to have any prerequisites to join this
No,
game?
you've got to have enthusiasm. You've got to have in customer experience. You find people have got the right heart. You know, they want to. We want to create better outcomes for people. That's what we're driven to do. So if that's how you feel, and you'd also like to have an opportunity to work with practitioners from different parts of the world, different skills capabilities, it's for you. And it happens in June. Come on board. There are 3 challenges. We don't know what they'll be yet, but they'll be for big charities. And you'll get to work with other professionals from around the world. You'll set the agenda. You'll set how you'll do it. I guarantee you'll learn a lot about customer experience from different practitioners. Everyone shares everything. There is no sense of business at all. It's all about doing good. It's about what you give. And many people have told me since that on the back of it, good things have happened to them. People have come to me and said, somebody I was engaged with in a team has asked me to go and lecture at a university. Someone else told us that they actually wanted to set up a contact center in South Africa and met a contact who's made that happen. We have no control over these things, but positive things seem to happen to the people who positively contribute to the World Games.
Amazing. Amazing. Yeah, you don't dictate it, but the results are really great. You see that results are really coming out. Cool. Great. You talked about COVID, and I also wanted to talk about COVID because that's one experience or one incident that changed the whole customer experience thing. People who were not into digital transaction or digital payments, for example, one of the reason COVID came and you have no other option but to accept or start to use digital payments. What other changes have you seen or customer behavior that you have seen after COVID has impacted in our lives?
I mean, the stealth movement to cashless payments. I mean, it just happened overnight. Having worked with organisations like Visa, it was always, the competition is cash. So for someone to come in and say, "Well, I can take that out of the game for you," we've migrated big groups of customers, which would have been expensive to get them there. So they got them there very quickly. What it did do, you talk about other things, it gave them an appreciation of how seamless omni-channel could work, because they were then purchasing through one portal, getting confirmations through a different portal, getting delivery through a different channel, and it was all connected up. Because we didn't have so much of the distraction of the retail world at the time, we were able to deliver it very efficiently, and that changed the expectations of customers. So the expectation of a seamless omni-channel experience certainly happened. Now, also what we found was consumers shifted their habits of spending as well, what they were spending on. Some things were no longer available, so they turned more of a critical eye to other topics. That then started them to look into some of the relationships they had to understand, is this a company I actually want to be associated with? When there's not a transaction going on, are they still dealing with me? And many consumers felt that they were left alone. The airlines, no need to use a plane. What do the airlines do? Do they just go, "We'll see you when there's business to do"? Or do they say, "Look, whether you're flying or not, you're a customer of ours. Let's keep that engagement going"? And some airlines, and I wish I could remember the airline now, it might be Thai Airline, it was Thai Airline, actually created a great scheme for loyalty, which was around walking miles. So rather than air miles, you actually gained walking. Now that's building the relationship. Those are the sorts of things that customers are experiencing and going, they're a good company. They're thinking about me, not just about their transaction. Also, we were all at a very heightened emotional state. So organizations needed to dial up their empathy to really understand where we were, and also to be very sensitive. I mean, with people being ill and people dying, personalization became not just a preference to give you a better offer, but actually to be really empathetic and recognize where people were. Those things we saw could happen, and they've continued to be expected going forward. And I think also we got much more comfortable with remote access. Remote, in the world of work we had, but in terms of dealing with people, we realized that there wasn't the opportunity to speak to a contact center because they were just so busy. We had to accept online communication channels. Some organizations realize we've got to ramp up our chat here. Our chatbots have got to get better. And some organizations excelled. And what we found is consumers are actually now more inclined to continue relationships with those organizations that help them out through that period. So again, they were exposed to technology at its best, but also exposed to technology at its worst. And as we've seen, not everything shifted back to a retail. I mean, you go to many towns and there are empty shops. You know, people have stayed online, the spenders stayed online. So to a greater degree, there is some confidence and some comfort in adopting those channels that were there, but actually adopting them more as a primary channel rather than as a secondary channel.
Awesome. Totally agree with that. You talked about two things. One is empathy and one is omnichannel. I heard one of your podcasts with Miles Thomas where he said omnichannel is not there yet, but we'll talk about that later. I wanted to bring in generative AI since now the whole section we are going to talk about generative AI. From my own personal experience, I've been to customer calls where customers come up. We are an AI chatbot company. We give integrations with OpenAI and everything. But I've seen customers coming in and they're saying, hey, I want integrations with OpenAI, but I also want integration with Anthropic or Google Bard. Sometimes when this fails, that should come up and fill in the void. Customers are coming with unimaginable requests. And so the whole theme, like in the age of AI, where everything is looks very simple, how do we manage this expectations of customers, just like COVID has made it?
I think what you just said there, Mano, is so interesting because that level of understanding and knowledge just was never there before. Never there before. You know, you didn't have customers phoning up and saying, can I just ask you to rewire your IVR system? Could I suggest, why don't you outsource to another location for your contact center? You know, they didn't have that level of engagement, but now they do. Now they understand it a lot more. And I think probably one of the things we're going to have to accept with generative AI is collaboration and letting the customers in more. They are able, as you say, to be able to use these tools directly themselves. They're going to come up with applications and solutions faster than we can. If you look at kind of what a modern organization does, it has its communities. Certainly modern institutions, if you take kind of like educational institutions, you'll have a panel of trustees and you'll have a panel of parents, say of an independent school, and they will collaborate and they will decide the future. Well, take that into a commercial situation. Currently, we probably have the corporation and we have focus groups and we have interest groups and we have communities. But what we're going to find is actually the customers have the capability and the understanding to be on equal par with the organization. So it's not just going to be a case of let's hear the customer's voice. It's going to be more a case of let's ask the customer what they're thinking, what they believe is right for us as an organization going forward. That is a big mindset shift. But they could, I mean, when you look at creative generative AI, customers can create their version of IKEA. They can create their own phone. They can do whatever they want. There's no restriction on that. So we're going to see a blurring of kind of the doing that from an illustrative perspective to actually wanting to be engaged. And you talking about that, I mean, I was seeing something the other day with within my PayPal, can I put the Top Table app inside of it so that it automatically recognizes where I'm spending and make recommendations? So, they're starting to join dots that we as in the world of business aren't joining. That's going to be a significant change. In terms of what we can do to manage it, I think we're going to find a division here between organizations. I saw some stats from Salesforce.com, and the number of people who use banned AI within organizations is high. We're at this period where we're experimenting, and I think it's something like 50% of AI tools that are used within organizations are banned by the organization. And many people are believing within the organization that using or having AI capability is going to be a fast track for their career progression. So we're going to get a lot of time spent on it. But we're in that development, that experimental stage, but it's like nothing else. It's directly available to customers at the same time. So our beta testing is there for them. Our sandbox is out there and they're playing in it as well at the same time. So I think for me, regulation is going to become very important. Now, I did see another piece from, I think it was Accenture, talking about that there's a very, very high level of expectation that government will step in and will set some authority boundaries down. I came across a piece by the Malaysian Financial Services Authority, but they've now created a code of practice for financial institutions to put their AI intentions against, to make sure they're fair, they're ethical, they're transparent. So I think we're going to see within organizations, within regulators of industries, an arrival of authority. Maybe you'll have like you have a compliance officer, you have your AI compliance officer, which will actually be there to be accountable. Because one of the biggest growth areas for AI is legal, because there's going to be so much litigation, there's so many cases of stolen IP, copyright, etc., coming down the line. So organizations are going to want to protect themselves. Regulation and compliance are kind of the opposite of innovation and exploration. So that's an interesting balance that organizations have got to get to. I think also their data at the moment, the way they manage the data's got to become a lot more fluid. I mean, we've got things like Microsoft Azure, you've got lakes, but are we really using them as lakes where the different data flows in? No, they're being used as kind of little lakes in different pots. So that fluidity of data is going to become really, really important. One of the biggest challenges I've always found with organizations is the sharing of this data in the first place. They have it, but they don't share it. If I share it, I lose control, or actually I expose myself to something I don't want to be exposed to. I might actually provide data which isn't correct because it paints the picture I want to paint. So being able to identify what is the right kind of language model to use, but also the culture of the business to say, let all the data in, let's see everything, because otherwise when we start to see these created AI generated options, they're not going to be true to the organization. Now, as well as I do, with any organization, you start to get a feel for what that brand is for. And if that brand then presents back a half truth, it's not believable from that organization. And even if we can't articulate it, we start to challenge ourselves to think, I don't know if I trust this organization. I really am worried about that. And especially when it comes to the capability of personalization, we'll be very worried if personalization starts to reveal things. If personalization said to me, as a father has two children, aged 13 and 17, and an organization presents that to me, we've made these predictions for you, I would start to feel very uncomfortable at the level of intrusion. That said, I was thinking the other day in terms of how easily we succumb to kind of lowering our bar for data privacy when it comes to things that are for our beneficial gain. And at the moment, I don't think we will worry too much about exchanging our data if we think we're going to get a better offer coming in. When you look at what the changes that are happening with generative AI, we're on a curve like that at the moment. Perhaps it's more creative, it looks more kind of superficial, but it's certainly moving into other areas. You start to see it being optimized in things like fraud, cutting down on crime, on piracy, on those sorts of areas. You start to use it in medical exploration. So you start to see medical processes being able to be accelerated because we're able to use AI generative MRI scans and putting those sorts of things in there. So if we can see a movement towards real positive gain, that's fabulous for us. If we simply see generative AI able to present a slightly better visual than I was getting before and a slightly better outcome, are we going to be really comfortable with how much we're giving up to kind of get there? Mm-hmm. So I think there's lots of opportunities that perhaps are certainly more valuable to a wider customer group. But where I don't think we are yet is in terms of, from an organizational perspective, just understanding the beast that we're actually dealing with. And we will need support from regulators and from government to help kind of take that forward.
Got it. So, so what I understand is companies will have to work very closely with government organizations to put them through. Okay, got it. Um, cool. So you also talked about human empathy. So now what happens with AI coming in? Every answer customers expect their questions to be answered instantly, accurately. It has to be contextual.
Yeah.
Now AI came in, it's throwing in answers at a very faster speed, which normal human agent wouldn't be able to do it at the same time. But at this moment, we lose human empathy. Not every customer is of the same mental state, right? Sometimes some customers are agitated, they want answers at the same time. So delivering accurate, instant, faster answers with AI sometimes lose the human empathy that stays with only human agents. What's your take on that?
Yeah, I totally agree. The one thing we can't do at the moment is to understand my context and my ability to take on board information. Yeah, so I agree with you. With generative AI, we will get more accurate, more clarity, and get closer to the answers I'm looking for. I maybe am not expecting that. I'm expecting to land somewhere in the field when I get my answer, but you're going to land me right on the point. A good example is in the world of agriculture. If you have a field and it has weeds in it, you buy a crop and it gets sprayed everywhere. John Deere developed a precision application technology that will only drop exactly where the problem occurs. That will change the composition of the land, something we don't know quite how it's going to play out yet. I wasn't expecting that level of accuracy. The efficiency goes up massively. That's great for me as a grower, but how do I cope with that level of accuracy going up? It's significant. It really is significant. What about those other organizations that are involved in supporting it? If they are impacted, does that unbalance the ecosystem elsewhere? So when we come to thinking about the empathy and the humanity, it's not just the interaction, it's afterwards what it actually means to me. If I get the right information I have and I sit on it and I don't do anything with it because I'm only human and I just didn't react to it, the next time I go in, I kind of say, I didn't do that correctly. Is the generative AI going to be able to identify this is someone who is not necessarily reactive and responsive? So therefore, please do not serve them that same information again. We need to understand their ability to respond and react to my information. And that changes not just with, that changes, of course, there are people who have different needs and requirements. But also it might just be, you didn't know that when I get off this call to go and act upon it, my next door neighbor said, could you come and help me put my fence up or something? And I went and did that instead. And therefore that time limited code you gave me has expired. So do you box me as someone who don't serve them time limited codes because they don't respond to them, or do you limit me, or do you box me as a good community a civilian who helps his neighbors? You don't see everything. So so that therefore that empathy and understanding is going to be challenged because you can't see everything unless I'm expected to give everything. If I expect to say, why didn't you do it? Well, it's because of this reason. Then you might come back and say, wow, what a good person that is. They sacrificed this offer to go and help their neighbor out, and they reassess you. So I think the inputs will be really, really critical in this. And I think about the information organizations hold on me, and that side of my character, they've never captured, and I've never allowed them to capture either. Yeah. So therefore, there's only so much you can kind of come back on. And I kind of equate it to having worked with like auto dealerships. There are some fabulous, people working in auto dealerships who can recognize when kind of the silhouette of a person comes in and they look at their face and they understand they know exactly how to deal with them. They deliver probably the same message that they deliver to the next person, but it's because they can tell the disposition of this person. And I don't think we're going to be in that situation just yet. I also wonder how we're going to be able to react to us as consumers, as I say, not answering or not completing the task based on the information we've actually been served, whether we're going to be capable to do that. And when that happens, do I then want to bypass it and go back and talk to a human? I say, like, I'm really sorry. You gave me a really good offer. There was a return. I needed to get it back. I've just realized it's still sitting on the side at home. If I go back in, I get a generative AI response, and it will say, well, in this situation, the time's elapsed. We're out. Whereas I want to talk to a person to say, give me a break, and I wonder that we worked with a bank a few years ago, an ethical bank, and one of the biggest things that came through that they looked for from ethical organizations was, give me a break. I won't always get it right as a customer. I won't always get it right. Don't punish me if I kind of get it wrong, please. And I wonder if there's going to be that wriggle room there just yet.
Got it. That's really well framed. I totally agree with that, where the human are made for bigger things. The AI will do the mundane task, and the AI can then go in and show that empathy wherever, just like you mentioned, sometimes people want to talk to an agent. So that's where you bring in the best of both AI and human agents, and then provide the solutions that are offered. Coming back,
Just
yeah.
on that point, man, because I had this discussion with someone the other day, because it does enable, from an employee perspective, us to work on the big issues as well. But someone really interestingly pointed out, as an operations person, said, the reason I'm so good at the strategic solutions is because I understand the transactional issues. If
Right.
you take those away and give those to AI, how can I learn? How can I learn? I don't know what the problems are because they're resolved before I get there. So I can't apply it to a bigger problem. And I thought it was just a very interesting way of framing it. We are probably like you, talking about the value of taking those mundane tasks off. But some people need that learning in order to accelerate to the next level. Otherwise, you come into an organization, you don't know this is happening. These mundane issues are happening, they're getting resolved. You just come up to that level. You have no empathy for what could be a problem. And
That's a
this
good
is...
point.
It's been a situation with organizations before where it's called the frictionless experience. The frictionless experience is where you actually don't feel any of the pain. But actually what happens quite often, certainly with financial institutions, is you'll switch because you go, well, what value are you adding to me? You're not adding extra value, but then you switch somewhere else, and all that friction that you didn't feel before, you now feel. So some organizations recognize the need to feel a little bit of friction, and then you can value what the organization is actually delivering to you.
Cool. I see a few questions are coming in, but we'll take it at the end of the session. Again, coming back to omni-channel, while I was listening to Miles Thomas on your podcast, he said omni-channel is not yet there yet, what he feels, or at that moment or point of time. Specifically, now mix omni-channel with generative AI. Do you think it's achievable, or we are still in the process? Because from the industry that I come in, where AI chatbots, we talk a lot about omni-channel experiences, the customers getting the same experience everywhere. Does it really happen on the customers end? Are they getting those experiences, or is the experience broken?
I don't see. It's not the tech. Well, it is partly the technology. So obviously, technologies have got much better at being able to be completely integrated with, but it's also the knowledge and the capability, and also the mindset of those operating it. So if you were to take across different functions who use, so customer service versus claims versus sales, so integrating those into one single solution. And let's say sales happens in a retail forecourt. Let's say customer service is owned by the organization, and claims is outsourced to a third party, and it's just done online. If the mindset is that actually we are part of a bigger offering here, and we know exactly where we fit in, so we've got to make sure that the things that matter most to customers in dealing with us are evident in all of those interactions, then yes, you can move to a seamless omni-channel experience. But if you have great technology and yet the mindset is different in those different locations, if in the claims department the mindset is never pay, if it's sales, it's a case of sell them whatever, regardless of whether it's a value or not. And if customer service say, we're not customer service, we're customer care, we really care about our customers, then that seamless omni-channel experience is never going to work because of the approach and the attitude of those different areas. So I think, when you're working on kind of migrations, and maybe you're trying to move ERP systems, you're trying to bring these different channels together, it really needs to have customer centricity running through the middle of it. If it's led by IT, you get brilliant capability. But as I say, as a customer, I go through it, it feels really awkward because I don't see it as seamless. But internally, we go, It's seamless across the different channels. It works, but it's like, but it doesn't work on kind of an empathetic level. It doesn't, and I
Yeah.
don't feel like a consistent brand experience. And these are the sorts of challenges. We're going to move so fast that you're going to have someone looking over their shoulders and saying, what are our brand values? What, surely we should know that first. Well, no, the technology I can change. It takes me longer to learn the brand values now.
Got it. That's totally agree with that. Yeah. I think now we can open up the session for the key questions that we got from Joseph, where he's saying, "Hi, Chris. One question from my side. Before I need to leave, probably for the end of the session, how do you see the challenge of making a decision to go for outbound generative powered approach versus inbound, a controlled and structured approach through machine learning approach when solving business issues? I see a lot of organizations thinking we need AI everywhere, and for every issue we need to solve. Hope to see you next time, and thank you," he says.
So we're working with a couple of guys in Monaco who are sort of grappling with this, and what they've found is it's very much it's not an either or, and it's not an accelerant. It's actually, you need to walk very carefully, very slowly, and do a forensic understanding of what the implications are. There seems to be they found there's quite a narrow path through, in terms of the checks to move from one to another, to move from machine learning to generative AI. And what they said, no, it needs to be almost the whole organization holding hands and kind of going, right, one step forward. Okay, anything we've left out here? Yeah, there's a couple of issues we didn't really, okay, let's fix those. One step forward again. And it's a much more pragmatic approach. Now, of course, it's a slower approach. And there seems to be, for some reason, because of probably the kind of the power and the technology capability, there seems to be a race. It seems to be a race. And whether that is valid, whether it is going to be a case, I'm not kind of a business analyst, so I couldn't tell you if the last organization to arrive is going to be the one that falls away. But certainly these two guys who are setting up a new company in this space were saying that you need to be very, very disciplined in your approach, really disciplined, and understand from a business perspective the implications of moving, the legal implications, the implications on capability of the teams to deliver it. We go back to those points that I think it was Accenture identified, or Salesforce identified, that individuals see this as an opportunity to progress their career. They're going to race forward on it. So I think you need to move, but with a controlled and structured approach that you have from machine learning. You need to move to generative, but with that capability, and not be afraid to say we're not ready yet. We're not ready yet.
Got it. I think this seemed to some audio problem with the video problem from my end. So, do you see any specific or what are the biggest 2 or 3 trends that you see as AI is evolving every day? Do you see any biggest, or your futuristically, do you see anything that's coming up for customer experience from the side of AI?
Yeah, I think probably the one we mentioned about collaboration. So customers are going to want to be involved more. They're becoming part of the focus. So I think, and with that, if they're just facing off to generative AI, it's not going to be completely fulfilling. So that need to still have that human engagement is going to be really important, because they're going to want to solve the bigger issues for the organization as well. I think the other big challenge for organizations is deciding whether they do the generative AI in-house, whether they work with partners, because of the speed things are working at, So do you just say, look, we're going to own it all, and then you find all of a sudden you've gone left and everyone else has gone right? Or do you find best of breed partners? And whilst you don't have the total understanding in the organization, you are able to keep up. So there's going to be a lot of movement in those different areas. And we are in a period where that's going to be unregulated. There's going to be no comeback. There's going to be organizations who are grabbing, learning models from different sources, which we don't know whether they're the right sources. And we certainly had, we've had some amusing horror stories from where courier companies have ended up writing limericks about themselves about how bad they are because they've used a poor learning model. So I think that's probably the second biggest challenge for me. A biggest trend is actually understanding how organizations bring it in and make it part of what they do, or they keep it on the fringes and they learn that best practice as they go through.
Agreed. Customers have to be involved in that. Okay, I'm gonna take some time to mute that person. Yeah, the same problem every time it comes
Maria
up.
is talking.
Okay, let me find who this. Yeah, Maria. Okay, got it. Cool. Sorry, Maria, to keep you on mute. But okay, I think we have got few questions from one from LG where he or she is asking, in which industries do you see the combination of AI and customer experience can make the biggest impact? Any specific industry sector?
Well, I've been looking at a few case studies, and they all seem to be coming through from the sort of pharma area, kind of the pharmaceuticals and the science areas. Now, because this is not a new area, this is not new for these guys. So it's something they've been very involved with before. So I think you'll see a lot of evolution coming from there. And that's for good reason, because it can really accelerate an impact on society. So I think absolutely there. I think another is the creative industries. So in those spaces, we've got the ability to recreate incredible illustrative capability. So I think that those are industries are going to get to grapple with it and use it, maybe superficially. Will it get on to being anything more superficial? I don't actually know. But there's a lot of, there's commerce to be made there. So actually that's where a lot of the focus will be. So I don't think it's necessarily going to be in mainstream areas. I think financial services is one. I think financial service, because as a burning platform, this can be really good to help with fraud detection and those sorts of areas. So whereas we might look at it from a perspective of, and of course, it will make a difference in customer service engagement. But I think that's a broad thing. That's not just more so in airlines or supermarkets or hospitality, but certainly some of those industries where they've got burning platform issues that they need to resolve. Then generative AI is actually a tool that they can apply with a purpose rather than just with curiosity.
Got it. One industry which I personally feel will gain a lot or still gaining a lot is gaming. I think they are giving in points and hooking up people for coming back again and again. I think they're using it really well over there. I see one question from Yogesh where he's asking, he has two questions for you. One is, what organizational barriers such as, yeah, please take your time. Cool. Yeah, I'll repeat the question again. What organizational barriers such as resistance to change, skill gaps, and cultural challenges can hinder the successful adoption and integration of generative AI technologies in customer service operations?
So I think various parts of the business will have a different level of confidence and a belief that it's right for them. I think that's going to be a big barrier where you need it to be integrated and connected up completely, and you've got parts of the organization that refuse to connect in. Now, some will stand behind, this is confidential information, we can't be doing this. Others will say, well, there's no value for us in doing this. And the departments that need it most, what are they going to exchange? What are they going to offer the other departments? So I think that certainly is a barrier. We mentioned earlier about the data needing to be a lot more fluid.
Open.
Yeah, absolutely. But I think also the organization having a responsibility about what it does with AI as well, because we see so much more in organizations how employees will leave because they just don't feel this organization is one that represents their values as well. And I think if you go into this space with just a case of, well, let's just see where it takes us, that will be seen as reckless and irresponsible. So I think if there isn't governance in place, then some organizations will really struggle with this. And you'll find some will implode from within, because you'll have people saying, look what we're doing with the data. It's just not acceptable. It's just not acceptable. So I think they're probably the biggest things for me. I mean, generative AI isn't new. It's been around for some time. It's obviously just reaching the mainstream here. I think as customers, do I really care that much? If I get an advantage, do I care that much? I'm not sure. I think it's quite nice. It's quite visual, but if you get a more personalized offer, you didn't know what a non-personalized offer. It's for you. It's not for me. It's for you. So therefore it just feels appropriate. I don't think we're gonna be able to value as customers the effort and energy that goes into generative AI. So I think another issue may well be the business case is just purely on productivity gains. And so that may hinder some organizations, because you'll make the productivity gain savings for a while, and then you won't recognize them anymore. So there's
Agree.
nowhere to kind of go. It's not a differentiator, let's put it like that. It's just another business tool. So no one's going to kind of accelerate way ahead of the others just because of generative AI. It's going to be because of all the other great levers that they can pull on their business, like quality and price and reputation already.
Got it. Totally agree with that. One of the things that most of the customers that we see overcoming to is they would want the brand tone to be set within the generative AI. So currently, what's happening is your company tone is very formal, and the AI is giving answers in a very funny tone or in a very cool setup. And companies don't want that. They want it to be very specifically to their tone. Cool.
Yeah.
Yogesh has one more question where he is asking, what specific required skill set do you need for customer service in relation to generative AI?
No, I think that is a very good question. I think curiosity. We had a look at kind of customer centric mindset traits, and there are 7 traits of leaders who have excelled in this space, and 2 I think really do apply to generative AI. One is curiosity, is to be curious. Where does this go? Because the challenging thing with generative AI is it will get you an answer. That's not curiosity.
Exactly.
Curiosity keeps going. It keeps going because there will be a better answer, and then a better answer when you add more information in. So the ability to be curious, so you're not restricted by the outcome of the technology. And the other one is active listening as well. I think you in this space you really need to be able to listen to what's going on before you formulate an answer, because when you see the advantages that generative AI will bring, faster answers, more clarified, quicker, that if you pause and don't say anything in a conversation for 20 seconds, the other person will talk again. And it's that second level of information that's the answer you wanted to get to. My worry is the way generative AI works is that first level of answer it will give, and it won't allow that pause for the second one. So I think people in this space need to have those capabilities, those skills to be able to compensate for it. Maybe they can program them in, but compensate certainly in for those particular areas. The other thing they need to be really good at is good stakeholder managers internally. As we mentioned earlier, it's not going to be a case of, right, we're going to do this. This is going to help create efficiencies for our customers, for our colleagues, for everyone. Not everyone is going to sign up. So therefore, you've got to be a great stakeholder manager to help others see the value of getting on board and being a part of it. And also empathy to be able to see why they would be resisting. It may be a fear. It may be that their models and the way they operate is underpinned by an operating model which doesn't really allow generative AI to be a part of it, and they're going to need to transform. So I think some of those customer centric traits are going to be really essential for working within generative AI. And also not to get too excited as well. I mean, to just keep your feet grounded as well in terms of what can happen and the capability. It's just to kind of keep grounded.
Yeah, it's just getting started. Yeah, that's where it is. Yeah.
Yeah.
So a lot of questions are flowing in. I hope Chris, you have few more minutes for us.
Yeah, sure. No, absolutely.
That's totally okay with you. There's a question from LG where he or she is asking, do you think that for SME is better to improve their CX processes using AI tools available on the market, or invest into a customized or create from scratch tool? Of course, for SME, cost plays an important role in the decision.
Yeah, that's a really good question, because obviously we're talking about a much smaller workforce here being able to do it, and we're also probably talking about very quite specific sectors. So, I mean, I would probably, of course, it does depend which sector you're in. I would probably err on the side of caution, and I would want to learn from within. So standardize exactly what you do. Get your customer experience management to a point where you can standardize what you need to do, and it works for you. And that will take longer, and that may be more laborious. But then look to see how you can automate and make it more efficient. I think if you start with the efficiency drive, then you'll end up making choices and creating outcomes that maybe not where you want to go.
Mhm.
I've got a good example. A friend of mine who runs a company has used AI to identify how to organize a loyalty program.
Loyalty program. Okay.
Yeah. But the reality is, in terms of when you see where it's going to go, it hasn't got given consideration to the long-term impact on profitability. It's just looked at short-term loyalty redemption. That's the model it's kind of worked on. And I think what he needs to do is to take a step back and just look at loyalty in terms of what value is that going to, a loyalty program, what value, what behavioral change is he looking to elicit? And he's not thought about that, what behavioral change he needs to elicit. It was just about the reward mechanism. So he's ended up creating something which looks quite nice. But if I was the financial director, I'd say, well, how's it changed? What are customers doing differently to earn the loyalty? And it hasn't answered that. And I think therefore that SME question, starting to understand what your parameters are, what your go-to market is, really get that clear.
Mhm.
Get your customer experience management to support that, and then look to see how generative AI can complement that and make things more efficient. But certainly that way around, I would do it.
Agreed. One of the problem areas is for anyone to build and platform like OpenAI is the quantity of data. You need to have large, really large amount of data. But I've been reading it somewhere. So organizations are coming with something called as instead of LLM, they're coming with SLM, small language model. So you need very smaller set of amount of data, and you can train it on your specific use case. So maybe LG, you can check out small language model SLM. Maybe that could be one thing that might interest you for
Yep.
SMEs. Okay,
Good one.
so this could be one of our last questions. This is from Robin Pearson. He's saying, I'm positive about the use of AI chatbots boosting customer experience if implemented correctly. He agrees with that. And he's asking, what about the cases where a human normally would have made an evaluation based on human feelings, where the empathy of the person helping the customer is appreciated from the customer point of view? Exactly what we were talking about before.
Yeah, I mean, we're not there yet, and I don't know whether I don't know if we want to get there. I mean, I remember seeing a chap from John Lewis Partnership talk, a big kind of retailer in the UK, and he said, I don't think I ever want to be in a situation where my customers believe they're having a decent, empathetic conversation with someone else, and actually it's not someone else. So he didn't, and I could really understand what he's saying there. I don't want to get to a point where it's so good that you can't actually tell if it's a human or a machine doing it. He wants it always to be a division between the human and the machine. And I think you said this earlier in terms of the types of tasks that it will do. So, and I think this is where, I mean, we already know kind of the dark arts of generative AI. I think this is where you've got to be careful. It's not about mispresenting or creating mystery. It should always be very clear and open. Whether that's a watermark, an audio mark, or what I think this is what regulation will bring in. What you're actually interacting with and how you're dealing with it. So I think, and maybe we will start to find preferences like channel preferences. We will find there, would you like your answer to be AI, generative AI, or human? Is it going to be artificial or real? And let's not forget that word in there, artificial. It's not
Yeah.
real. So do I want a real answer or do I want an artificial answer? And maybe I will start to have a choice. Maybe we will find that's where premium comes in. A real answer is a premium solution, and an artificial answer is a value solution. And you as a consumer can choose which route you want to go down, because obviously there is a greater cost between one or the other.
I really like that word specific use of premium, like providing premium customer service, which is very different from like your fastest scalable, but that is
Yeah,
artificial.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
that's a really great take.
They do have
Again,
in Scandinavia, they have slow lanes in supermarkets where the person who's working there will talk to you. They will talk to you, they will chat about it. And if you're standing in there, it's a slow lane. So, in that respect, there's a human relationship is going to happen as part of it, and you go into it knowing it. So therefore, if you don't choose that lane, you don't expect to have that human level, that human conversation. I think this is where we'll start to move towards, where I know which lane I'm going down, so therefore my expectation of what the exchange is going to be like is much clearer to me.
Got it. Perfectly well said. Okay, so Wonder, very specific name. He or she is asking, how will we be able to create the emotional bond if we look to implement AI almost everywhere? I guess that's the same answer that we have been talking about. We cannot.
I think we got to think about the entire journey that a customer goes through. We get quite obsessed with the pre-purchase and the purchase, the order to cash piece, but there is the post-purchase relationship, the usage of the product. There is also many retailers are now using the pre-purchase experience to showcase what they do, but you can't get the transaction there. So I think there are lots of opportunities. We quite often will go through and look at it through a number of layers. We look at what's the essentials in terms of from a permission to trade, what's expected by the customer. Then we go through what's empathetic. What do we need to be empathetic, and then where's the essence of the brand coming through? And I think if you look at all your engagement touch points, you'll find those opportunities where you can be there. A really good example, I was just a bit upset the other day. I had a birthday pass and I went to a supermarket and I got just presented a voucher that said, oh, it's your birthday, here is very little currency off our loyalty scheme. Oh, it ends today. And that was like the day of my birthday. It's got to end on that particular day. And I just thought there was 100 different ways you could have delivered that experience where it would have made it feel a lot more kind of human and engaging. So I think we've just got to work harder, in those situations to find the opportunities for deeper engagement.
Yeah, setting a timer on like creating the come by now is not a good idea.
Yeah, it was like, it's your birthday. Thank you for your year of loyalty. Here's, about 70 cents of discount. Oh, and by the way, you have to use it by your birthday. So what am I going to be rushing down to the supermarket to get? It just felt like it was almost on paper, it looked like this is really empathetic. We know it's his birthday and we're going to deliver something. But the actual execution of it was as far away from being empathetic to the fact it was my birthday you could have got.
Totally agreed on that. I think we have no more questions coming in. What I'm going to do is I'm going to put, Chris, your LinkedIn and the link to your podcast so that people can check them out. For all our attendees. Okay, so what I'm gonna do is meeting group chat and send. So what you see on the chat is you see Christopher's LinkedIn. Please do go and connect with him. Also, we have the link for his podcast where he talked to people from different backgrounds from customer service and everything, coming and talking about their experiences, which is really great. Chris, I really want to thank you from the deep of. Yeah, please go ahead.
I pose the question to you. I'm really, really interested because I've been having a look at you guys and what you're up to. So I mean, what is the number one thing for you? What do you think is going to be kind of the game changer for generative AI?
So for us at the moment, currently, what we are thinking is the emotion or the human empathy cannot be replaced by AI. The only way to provide solutions from our angle point of view, where we are, is that we are customer support and customer service. Exactly what you said. If you want fast, scalable, go for the AI. But if you want empathy-driven or very personal experience, you bring in the human agent who understands the whole emotions of the customers. So that's where we're going towards. We are making a solution which combines AI plus human empathy. So provide a very personalized and a very high scale experience to the customers.
Excellent.
But we agree personally, not as a company, I'm not talking about as a company, but personally what I feel is AI is not there yet where it would take on the human empathy. It would, like, there's a very larger amount of time would require there to reach there.
I mean, it'll settle down to being another tool in our toolkit without a doubt. I think, but it won't have to be the first tool that we pick out of the box every time.
Yeah, agreed on that. Cool. Okay. Thank you so much, Chris, for taking out the time and sharing This was really great conversation. I really appreciate you taking out the time here. Thanks to all our attendees joining us from different parts of the world. We will be sure to share this recording with everyone who has joined us today and those who could not make it. But thank you, everyone. Thank you so much, Chris. Really appreciate it. And we will see you guys again on the another webinar series by Kommunicate. Thank you.
Great questions, everyone. Thank you, man. I much appreciate it. Thanks
Thank you
for
so much,
joining.
Chris.
Yeah. Bye-bye.
Bye.